Here's why the Lexus LS400 is a great drift platform. If you take a look under its unassuming skin and luxury-oriented roots, the LS400 makes almost perfect sense in the realm of sideways. Nowadays, just about any make or model you can think of has been built into a drift car. And for good reason. Drift culture has not only become more popular over the last few years, but the younger generation, in particular, is heavily focused on drifting when it comes to building cars. So it would only be fitting that cars like the Lexus LS400 have become a popular drift platform for those who love a timeless Japanese design and genius engineering. If you take a look under its unassuming skin and luxury-oriented roots, the LS400 makes almost perfect sense in the realm of sideways. Without further ado, let's take a closer look at the Lexus LS400 and consider why it has such as a great drift platform. The Lexus LS400 has an exceptional powertrain. Under the hood of the LS400 is one of the most well-engineered motors of all time, the Toyota 1UZ-FE V8. This 4.0-liter engine gives the LS its 400 moniker and also some decent power. Depending on the model year, the LS400 makes anywhere from 250 horsepower in its earliest year, 1990, to 290 horsepower in its final hour, 2000. The 4.0-liter V8 itself has an aluminum block, aluminum pistons, and aluminum cylinder heads, making the 1UZ an under-stressed reliability machine. Toyota easily could have turned up the intensity and made over 300 horsepower all day long with the LS400's engine, but by keeping the power low and torque high at about 245 to 309 lb-ft, they could ensure that it would run forever, more or less. And they do. Matt Farah of the Smoking Tire YouTube channel famously had a million-mile Lexus LS400 that he and a few other friends bought at a whopping 700,000 miles for somewhere between $1,200 and $1,400. For all of these reasons, drifters commonly look for the LS400 because chances are it'll run and drive for another 100,000 miles after you buy it. And if you look after it properly, it could very well take you to 7 figures on your odometer. The transmission, however, while reliable, is not as formidable a unit as the 1UZ V8. Common problems arise after a few 100,000 miles that, if unattended to, can result in a full tranny replacement, which can cost anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 depending on availability. Old automatic transmissions like the LS400's 4-speed gearbox are terrible for racetracks, which is why manual swaps happen to be a common fix. We'll get to that later. The LS400 can drift with thanks to its wheelbase. Have you ever seen a smart car drift successfully? Neither have we, and there's a reason for that. In a short wheelbase car, the amount of time it takes for the weight in the rear to shift and begin a drift is small due to its tiny size, meaning you have less time to catch a slide. In a long wheelbase car like the LS400, drifts begin slower and in a more controlled manner, giving you, the driver, more time to turn the wheel and mitigate the throttle. A longer wheelbase is a fundamental physics advantage of the LS400 that just can't be beaten by smaller and lighter coupes. All that glass and leather extra body metal may be a disadvantage for a competitive drifter, but for a beginner or novice driver, the LS400 is a perfect way to get real practice within a safe and solid foundation. If you yourself are a novice drifter, then you should also know that the LS400 never came stocked with a limited slip differential, meaning the open diff would need to be replaced if you want to drift correctly. There is a debate as to whether the LS400s ever came with LSDs, but the common consensus seems to be that the LS differential was always open from the factory and the LS300, the smaller Lexus sedan, was the only one with an LSD option from Lexus. Toyota parts are usually not that rare. Toyota parts are cheap and easy to find for almost every model for the last 20 years or so, which includes the LS400, although some parts are harder to find than others. Body panels, for one, are something drifters go through like John Oliver goes through plaid dress shirts. Parts for your LS400 will almost always be cheaper than for German sedans from the 90s, but it won't be that cheap. With that said, it's completely doable. The LS400s you find at junkyards or on eBay for parts will be found by others in an instant. Body panels for the LS are especially hot in the aftermarket and will be bought up quickly, so if you need parts, you should search for them immediately and not put it off. You can swap for a manual. The LS400, as well as the other 1UZ-powered Lexus models from the 90s, never came with manual transmissions, which for most drifters, is a must. Some enthusiasts, aka those who are willing to take on a big project, swap in manual transmissions from other Japanese sports cars like the Nissan 350Z CD009 manual unit, which isn't the most magical gearbox, but it will get the job done. And like many cars that came automatic only, the 1UZ takes on a different personality when paired with a stick. Drifters can play with the engine in a way that was never possible from the factory. With manual transmissions connected to the 1UZ, enthusiasts can more effectively find the power bands within the reverend range and use them to their advantage, whether that be on the track or the street. And, of course, manuals are just plain joyful, especially when compared with an old slushbox like that Toyota 4-speed auto.